Hello and welcome. I have brought you here so that I can selfishly test my microphone and kind of see how it works. Because I just got a new microphone. I got my tax return and I want to see how my microphone holds up in the live situation because that is one of the places where I will be using it. So I don't know if anyone's going to show up to this. It's kind of impromptu, but I mean, while I'm here, I might as well do a little philosophizing. So, one of the things I really wanted to talk about was how, well, a problem that I see with society right now, especially corporate, but I think this is a problem with all society. I don't think it's just corporate society. So, one of the biggest problems that I see right now is that when something becomes big, it becomes difficult to manage. And how this affects other people is, let's just take a corporation or a business as an example. So I'll use my old job as an example, a place that I used to work several years ago. Now, they were your generic, well, they weren't generic, but they were your regular old mom and pop kind of shop. They had one location. It was two people who ran it. They had a tight ship. They got really busy. People loved them. They were able to give that great customer service to every single person that came. They were doing really well. They ended up adding one person onto their team who was kind of like their mascot, was going around hyping up the business, kind of like a salesperson. And sooner or later, they got to the point where they needed to have a location. They needed an actual store. They weren't going to get by with just a little cart on the mall at the 16th Street, which is in Denver, like downtown. They weren't going to get by with that, so they had to buy a shop. So at the shop, then they started to have employees because obviously they're growing, they're going to need more people. And the thing that happens is the more people you get, the harder it is to control the outcome. Because with you can analyze yourself, you can review your own personal behavior, you can maybe, if you're with a partner, talk to them and realize what their behavior is like. And with more people, it becomes very difficult to do that because you can't control other people. You can't tell other people how to act, how to behave, because to a certain degree, they're only going to do what they want to do. You can get them on board with you. You can convince them that what you want to do is the best thing, but you can't always do that. And so you get a few people who are really on board with the idea of your business. You get a few people who are really, really hyped to do your business and live up to the business model that you've created. They're able to get the customer service that you want. They're able to create the products that you want to create. Things are going really well. So well, in fact, that now you've decided you need to open a second shop because there's just so much going on. You can't keep up with it. You have these really great ideas for what could happen at the second shop. You can do all these things at the second shop that you can't do at the current shop. And so you open a second shop. Well, what does that mean for the people who own the business? Well, there's two people who own the business, the people who opened it to begin with. So naturally, one person's going to own one and one person's going to be in charge of the other. That's just the natural way. Like, I mean, you could both try to watch both, but really in the end, one of them's going to be the main at one and one of them's going to be a main at the other. And as that starts to happen, you're going to see differences between the two locations. One location is going to be more like one manager A, for example, and the second location is going to be more like manager B. Now, any differences they had in philosophy are really going to shine at these different locations. At location A, you're going to have A philosophy. You're going to have this business model that A has been projecting onto his employees, and everyone that works there is really on board with A's philosophy. Business 2, same thing, except everyone's going to be behind B's philosophy. Now, there are some C philosophy that fit between both businesses. However, it's not going to be fully the same. There's going to be differences between the two businesses. Also, hi, Joey, or Joe, or Joe. And with these two businesses, they start getting successful because all in all, we're still talking about the same two people who owned the original shop. So they're still going to have a lot of overlaps in their philosophy. So what is a natural progression for a business? Well, you can either, one, choose to stay a mom and pop forever, which isn't financially lucrative, but it does have the benefits in that you get to keep the philosophy that you want, you get to run the business that you want, you can pass the business on to your families or the employees that work there. So there are some benefits for keeping a business small. However, if you're really successful, you're going to have people come in, and those people that come in are going to say, hey, I like what you're doing with your business. Let's grow this business. And how tempting is it? Like, how can you say no? And someone's like, hey, you want to make millions of dollars? Let's make millions of dollars together. So manager A and manager B, they sit down together and they say, all right, let's talk about this. Let's think about franchising. Manager A says, seems okay. I have a few qualms. I don't know how it's going to work. Manager B's like, but man, we can make some money. Like, let's make some money because, you and I are thinking about retiring. We're middle-aged. We're not going to be able to do this forever. My back already hurts from doing this the past 6 years. I'm going to need some money to retire. I have kids. I want to get them into college. And the way that the business is going, it's good, but I'm never going to be able to pay for my kids' college tuition on this salary here at this job because, we're small. We don't have insane amounts of customers. We just have, the joy of the job, so to speak, and that doesn't pay the bills that I need to pay. Manager A says, you know what? All right. It seems like a cool idea. I want to be in control of certain elements because I don't want to lose the mission of the business, but okay, let's talk about this franchising thing. Let's see how it goes. Well, in order to franchise, you need to do several things. You need to have a consistent rule for what is your business. You need to come up with guidelines. You need to come up with a training manual. You need to come up with a layout manual. You need to come up with all these little pieces of information that dictate what your business is. And this is where the differences between manager A and manager B really come to shine. This is where the arguments and disagreements come in. Because manager A says, no, we really need this. Manager B says, but how are we going to produce this on a mass scale? Manager A says, okay, well, I can compromise on this, but I still want this. Manager B says, we can't do this, but we can kind of do that. And thus it dwindles down to where the franchised business idea is not the full business idea. It's a portion of it. It's a very, for lack of a better word, oh goodness, I can't even come up with a word. It's just it's an outline. It's an outline of the business as opposed to the full novel, if you know what I'm saying. So you get this outline of the business, the bare bones, the bare minimum, and you've got some of the business philosophy, but you also had to let some of it go because you're like, how am I going to make sure that all the people who franchise agree with this business model when I can make sure that they agree to have, deliverable stuff, right? So you start franchising, you open a business in a different state. Well, what's going to happen? There's a manager D now. We have manager D, manager A, and manager B. Manager D says, this is a cool business model, but, I really want to do this, which is completely out of line with what manager A ever wanted. And manager A gets mad and says, yo, what did we do this for? Now manager D is messing things up, and they're going to create an image that's going to mess up with our image. Manager B says, all right, I'll take care of this. Manager B goes and talks to manager D. He works it out. All right, everything's good. They franchise and open a fourth location in another state. So now we're in 3 different states with 4 different managers. Manager E is just doing his own thing, doing whatever manager E wants. So manager A comes to manager B and says, this isn't working. They're not doing what we wanted to do. And manager B says, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I'll go talk to them. We'll work it out. All the while, buildings A and B, the original buildings, the original businesses, they're starting to lose that drive for the business. They're starting to lose focus on the ideals, because what they're trying to do is write down everything that they're talking about, write down everything that they do every day. They're trying to capture what it is that their job is. Well, okay, let's be honest. People are control freaks. You're going to have control freaks that are the employees. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm a control freak. I want to be in charge of how things are being done because I want them to be done right. And everybody wants things to be done right. And so you have this balance of power happening. Oh, excuse my guineas. They're fighting for power too. I mean, that was kind of actually perfect timing. So you have this balance for power happening in the business and in the franchises and amongst the employees. And, you keep growing and keep growing. And these problems become more and more difficult to manage because there's more of them. There's more going on. You're going to have less control over the individual elements. And at one point, it's going to be so blown out of proportion that even business A with manager A, they're going to start to lose that drive. They're going to start to lose that original vision. And pretty soon, they're going to have somebody else coming in and saying, hey, you're not doing the same thing that the other 7 stores are doing. What's up? And manager A is like, I came up with this business. This is what we're supposed to do. And everyone else is saying, well, democracy rules. You need to do what we're doing or you can't have this business name anymore. Manager A created the business, but manager A doesn't get to keep the business because he decided to franchise and create a democracy in his own business. Now, this is on the small scale. We're talking 8, 10 businesses, franchises. What happens when it becomes corporate? Well, when it becomes corporate, you have a CEO who is pretending to manage like thousands of people that are their quote unquote employees. And the manager, the CEO, is only seeing numbers, spreadsheets. They're only hearing what their confidants are telling them, the board of directors. That's all the CEO hears is what's going on from the directors. What does he see in the paperwork? That's all he's getting. And he has to make decisions that affect every single individual at the company. But he can't think about every single individual. He has to think about the big picture. And so what's going to happen when you think about the big picture? Well, you're going to have one of 2 types of people. You're going to have manager A or you're going to have manager B. You're going to have CEO A or CEO B. CEO A is going to be really focused on the philosophy of the company. The CEO A is going to say, we need to keep up to this ideal, this message, this reason for our company. And manager B, or CEO B, I should say, they're going to say, no, we need to make as much money as possible. I am trying to pay my bills. I am trying to get that private jet that I have been looking forward to my entire life. I don't care about these people. I don't see these people on a daily basis. I see the numbers that they're giving me. The numbers don't match up. So fire them. Get rid of them. Do this shady stuff so that I can make money. Because when you're at such a level, even the manager, even CEO A, who has this great philosophy, how is he going to ensure that all of his employees live up to the philosophy that he's created? He's creating an empty philosophy because unless he goes and convinces every single employee or has managers that are actually believing in his ideal, there's no way the whole company is going to live up to his ideal. There's going to be areas within the company where people do the exact opposite of his ideal. There are going to be people who do what they want because they can get away with it. Because if they write a flowery letter that says, hey, we did all these really great things, he's not going to know that things aren't going well, because all he has to know are his confidants, his board of directors. And so this is a problem with the way that we have society set up, because we have these corporate giant things. You can even look at governments the same way. We have a government that, let's just use America for an example, because I live in America, so I know the most about American government. We have a centralized government, okay? Then we have 50 states who all have their own centralized government. And let's just look at recent laws that have passed. They've caused some real controversy around the country, such as gay marriage rights, transgender equality rights, marijuana legalization. Not every state agrees. And the country, the president, the centralized government doesn't agree. But the states say, you know what, screw you, I'm going to do what I want. And so there's a problem with trying to control too big of an area. And now I have this kind of internal qualm, because part of me wants this like utopian existence where there's a centralized government for the entire world, where we all live up to the same moral rules. I don't know about any of you, but that's my ideal, where we all live up to the same moral rules, but we kind of do our own thing. The problem is that doesn't work, because it's impossible to make sure that everyone is doing exactly what your philosophy is, because people are free to think whatever the heck they want. And the more you try to control them, the more you try to affect them, unless you have some way to talk to them individually, unless you have the way a bunch of rulers. Okay, so if you wanted to make this kind of utopia work, let's just speculate for a second and like pretend we can make this happen. Okay, let's just pretend that possibility exists. We'd have to have a centralized government of the world that is perfectly ethical and always thinks out every single decision to the absolute moral perfection that we're all hoping for, right? Now, I'm not even going to debate what the moral perfection is, because that's a whole nother question that we might never agree on. But say we all agree on what this moral perfection is. This centralized group of leaders would then need to go out and find another group of leaders who all are on board 100% with what they're speaking of. We're talking complete compliance, complete agreement. And now I'm not saying that they're going to agree 100% of the time, because disagreement is important for making change in the right direction, right? However, they would need to make sure that those next leaders, so say the leaders of all the countries, are on board, right? Not only on board, but be good at communicating and encouraging and motivating the same message. So you'd have to have perfect leaders who are perfect at communicating a message to the next level. Like, take this pyramid, the government's up here, like the central government's up here, the next government's my next knuckle. They need to be perfect at then spreading that message even further. And, we're playing a game of telephone, right? You know that game when you're a kid. You say something into the kid's ear next to you. They say it to the next person. By the time it gets to the 20th kid, it's completely different, right? So you have to somehow perfect the message so that it goes through all 20 ears and comes out the same. And that is why there's a problem with trying to control too much, because it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to do exactly what you want. There's always going to be uprisings. There's always going to be problems, because unless we can create some kind of perfect world where everyone's communicating all the time and everyone's like perfect, it's not going to work. And so there's problems with the way that our society is. And I think that's one of the biggest problems, is this trying to control everyone. It works. It works in small areas. It works in small groups. Like if we go back to the business I was talking about originally, their business model worked perfectly. when they had a single business, when there was just a few people. It worked great. Just as great when they had 20 employees. It was working great. It even worked well when they made 2 buildings. So manager A and manager B took 2 different buildings. They didn't always agree, but they still had the same generic message. However, as soon as they tried to franchise, as soon as they tried to spread themselves too thin, it didn't work. And so control and having things perfect can work if it's small. And the problem is, with a bunch of small groups of people all doing their own thing that's all perfectly ethical, they're never going to agree on what's ethical unless we have some kind of hierarchy system where we actually communicate between all these different groups of different moral and ethical ideas and different businesses. Unless there was some way to get every CEO and every board of director and every next level to all meet up and all agree on some kind of like perfect criterion and to continually work together to create some kind of agreement, the way that we have our society set up is just going to fail. It's going to fail because people aren't going to agree. There's going to be system failures within, and things are going to crash a little bit at a time, and then eventually a big one. I mean, the 2008 stock market crash is not because people were buying too many houses. It's because of a ton of factors, and a lot of those factors coming from things being too difficult to manage because they're too big and things aren't working. There's one rotten egg. That rotten egg swells and makes other things around it rotten. But yeah, let me read some of your comments because I see some comments now. So, hi, James, and hi, Joe. So James was saying there's no perfect solution. This is why there isn't an overarching centralized government for the world. Different people think differently, and so different solutions are necessary. That is very true. And systems can't be created, or we can't create systems that rely on ethical leadership. Is a bananas model? What does that mean? The system is designed to resist change. If it is doomed to fail, we can only hope that it takes a long time. You know, and this is something that actually I worry about a lot because I do think that it is destined to fail in a lot of ways. I do think that we have the potential to stop it from failing. I think we have a potential to create an infrastructure underneath the system that we already have that we can fall onto if and when it does break down. But we'd all have to really work together and have a lot of communication. Like I'll even use my current job very vaguely as an example for communication. So at my business, we have several different departments. We have the entry level, then we have the analysts who are just basically, they analyze the entry level people. Then we have managers and trainers who are basically the same. And then we have site managers. So the managers who are overseeing the managers. Now, what ends up happening is there's no discussion. There's no platform for everybody to talk with the advisor level, the entry level, the analyst level, the management level, and the upper management level. There's no system to ensure perfect communication between all the departments. So upper management may come up with a great idea, but can they perfectly convince the next level management to implement it? Can next level management implement it even if they believe in it? And will you actually be able to get the entry level to live up to it and to get on board with it as well? And we see a lot of system failures here and there because of this exact problem. There's not enough communication between the departments, enough open communication. But I do think that personally, where I work, we're working on it, but I know that my place of work is just one of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of sites and businesses that are in the exact same situation. Oh, no, that makes sense. Maybe I should have read it that way, Joe. Bananas, as in crazy. Yeah, if I start talking about shareholders and the stock market and the way that that's run and working, I'm going to probably lose my mind. that is that is a subject that if I have more education on, I would love to talk about because I see blaring problems with the system. And I think that that system is kind of why we have such a differential between upper class and lower class. But I don't want to get into that whole rabbit hole. But since I have you guys here, and I just got a new microphone, how's the sound of my microphone? And I know there's a delay, so I'll wait. Right? Actually, it could be a pun. New mic, new mic. No, don't call me Mike. Hello. Oh, hi everyone. I kind of did this impromptu, so I wasn't planning it, but then I was like really excited about this microphone. I've been playing with it since I took it out of the box, just like listening to my voice and stuff, which sounds conceited, but you know. Oh, well, hello, Zandy. Thanks for stopping by. It's nice to meet you too. Hey, love. Hey, Jeffrey. This mic, I'm like so excited about it, like weirdly overly excited about it. I'm going to record my music with it, and I realized I need to change out my guitar strings because they're pretty bad shape. I've had them for 2 years without changing them, so. Okay, so I'm not going to lie. I have been told by probably over 100 people that I have like either a nice voice or a radio voice. Like I used to be a trainer online, and I had like a virtual training environment. So I was always on microphone, and all these people were like, "Your voice is so relaxing." And I'm like, no, don't fall asleep. We need to be awake. Because our class would go until like 9:30 Eastern time. And so, there was this one guy who was always falling asleep by the end of class. You could see him just all like that. It was great. But I basically said everything I want to say about, when things get big, they get difficult to manage. But since you guys are all here, there's way more people than I thought because I wasn't really looking at the number count. But is there anything you guys would like to philosophize about before I end the stream? Is there anything that's been bugging you? And maybe, you can come and meet with me for some live event and we can philosophize together. If it's an in-depth kind of dealio. Also, waiting for you guys to type because of the delay is hard because I want to just fill the sound so there's no silence. Cause who likes silence? Not me. Do 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 do. Well then, you guys are either typing very slow or typing out novels, or you don't have anything. Just keep talking. Well, I need some kind of prompt, or I'm just gonna ramble on endlessly. about who knows what. It is bemusing to philosophize. I quite enjoy philosophizing. I spend too much time philosophizing. I drive my coworkers crazy because they'll always come to me with like some small thing. They're like, "Oh, this person's annoying me because X, Y, and Z." And I'm like, "This is such a statement on humanity right now." And I'm always like, "Man, I'm sorry, but how many other people are feeling exactly like them? And how messed up is our society that we live in?" What do I think about the different cognitive abilities that humans possess? Well, I think that it's really exciting that people have different capabilities in their minds. I think that if we all had the same skills, it'd probably stagnate. We'd probably lose the ability to progress as a human race. I think that everyone's strengths really help us stay together as a society and as oh, I lost the word. But anyway, society is a good enough word. I think that it's really great that we have all these different cognitive abilities and everyone's are different. Like specifically, those of you who watch me probably know that I spend a lot of time with myers-briggs and Jungian and socionics, those kinds of psychology philosophies, and I do really like the way that they're broken down. The problem is I do find that there's so many different descriptions for them that are all different that it makes it really hard to understand what they actually are. And I've been learning about personality and Myers-Briggs since 2010, so like 9 years. And I still feel like I don't fully understand everything, and I still feel like I learn new things about personality every day. And I think that I learn more about how people's brains work every day as well. And I love learning about people and what they're capable of and encouraging them to do more of that, because I feel like something that happens is that we're discouraged to do things that aren't the same. Like if we don't fit into a certain person's idea of a perfect capability, that we get put down, because a lot of jobs are kind of specified. They lean better into certain personalities and certain abilities, and because of that we cut out people who would be really good because their personality doesn't seem like it would be good and their cognitive capabilities don't seem like it would be good. Phenomenology, I mean, I'd have to Google the word, but it sounds cool. And like my first guess is, phenomenon and ology, the study of. So the study of phenomenon, I'm guessing that's what it means. But if you want to like tell me more about what that is, that'd be cool. A perfect society would be nice if, I don't know if it's if we were more homogenous or if we didn't care about, separate, if we didn't care about labeling, if we didn't have language, okay? Because language labels and separates and segregates things. And yes, it can be helpful in that it helps us to understand things. However, I also think that the only reason that race exists is because we have words to name race. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have that problem if we didn't like try to separate and categorize things so much. But then again, I study personality, and all that is segregating and categorizing people. So I'm a walking contradiction. So there we go. The concept of a hive mind. I do think that there's truth to that concept. I do think that I've seen it. I don't think that it's altogether a bad thing. When you have a bunch of people going after the same goal, it can be very, very good for society. Like if you if you look at just Martin Luther King, for example, because he's relatively recent, he created a kind of hive mentality with people of color in a positive way. He rallied people and said, you can't take this. You have to stand up for yourself. You need to know that you're worth it. And though people often use hive mentality as like a negative thing, I do think that it has a lot of positive potential if projected in the right direction, if it's used in the right way. Les minutes ourées. I don't know. I might have said that wrong. Am I familiar with the concept of general intelligence? Off the top of my head, I can't say that I am. If you want to elaborate, that would be amazing. And when it comes to the concept of race, as I was kind of saying earlier, I think it originally was mostly, a way to kind of categorize, and also potentially, if we go really far back into human history and anthropology, different races would have been very different. They wouldn't have been able to communicate. They wouldn't have been able to understand each other's way of being because they would have been so different. So race, in a way, would have been a scary thing. However, there was a lot of intermingling, even despite the language barriers and even despite the cultural barriers. So I think it's, hi, the boy. I did stop talking. I got distracted. It worked. Hi. If people had no problems, they would quickly. You know what? If people had no problems, they would quickly create new ones. I am case in point in that. Every time life seems peachy dandy, I'm sure immediately I find a new problem. We could talk about Nietzsche, however you want to pronounce his name, and talk about how. No, I lost it. I'm getting tired because I've been talking to myself for how long has this thing been going? 40 minutes talking to myself. Nietzsche. Nietzsche. Here, I'll type his name in the chat if you. Oh my goodness. I can't type in the chat right now. I'm sorry. I have it set up wrong. It's Nietsze, I think. Nietz. Wait, yeah. Nietzschag. Something like that. Yeah. Or maybe there's no S. I don't know. What do I think of dreams? How the exchange of energy between us and the matrix works, a place where there's no limits, in a way to test us and get that flux of energy generating, or flux of energy going to generate more. When it comes to dreams, I have several different concepts that come to mind. Just general, like dealing with your day. Sometimes it can be just as simple as that. But I'll just pull up a book right here that I really like. It's called Conscious Dreaming. And the reason that I did pick up this book originally several years ago is because I wanted to learn how to lucid dream, but I didn't want to just control my dream for the sake of controlling my dream because it seemed kind of pointless to me at the time. Now I have a completely different mentality about it, but alas. And he talks about how, you can go beyond just lucid dreaming, and he doesn't call it astral projecting, but it is like astral projecting, where your mind or soul or whatever you want to call it projects outside of your mind and outside of your phaneron, and you're able to see above things, basically like being in a next dimension, and you can travel across space and time, go anywhere, because you are projecting yourself out there, and it's not something that's easy to do, and I'm too afraid to actually make it happen. Every time I don't know, I have like this fear that's like, what if my soul leaves my body and never comes back? And then it's like, do I believe in a soul? And then, you know, this whole philosophical problem happens. And yeah, but I do really like it. And if you guys are interested in learning more about dreams and astral projection, Conscious Dreaming by Robert Moss is a really great place to start. I know this might be coming up backwards, but you guys can figure it out. And then when it comes to the Matrix, I did kind of make a video about what is called the greater consciousness, essentially. And what that is where all of our thoughts and all of the things that we're doing are being put out into space. You know, every thought and intention we have has a brainwave and is going out there. And with the more intention, the stronger the brainwave is. Just like, you know, they can create machines where somebody can control an arm by using their mind. I mean, that's because we have measurable brainwaves coming out of our brain. And think about the fact that there are 8 billion people on this planet, potentially more. And we're all putting brainwaves out there. And those brainwaves have a way of affecting the world around us to some degree, because if you look at the study where the Japanese guy said, I love you to one cup of rice, said, I hate you to another, and neglected the other, the one he said, I love you to fermented, and the other two got rotten. And so there is some kind of truth in the ability to affect things outside of you with the intentions that you have. And so if you couple those two ideas, you have to believe that there's some kind of greater mingling of all our brainwaves outside of us, even if you don't want to have some kind of like religious aspect. Though I also do think that, you know, I grew up religious. I grew up Christian, and I do think that the Bible, the message that they speak about the spirit, I think that the spirit is exactly the greater consciousness that I'm labeling it as. I think the spirit is what flows between us. And I don't like calling it the spirit. I prefer the greater consciousness, because spirit and Christianity, and then this God figure, and then this like masculine man with a beard and like a lightning bolt, like Zeus-like kind of mental picture comes in for me. And I don't like associating those because it kind of confuses the concept that I'm trying to get across. But I do think that a lot of religions teach about this kind of, you called it a matrix. I call it greater consciousness. Someone said source. Yeah, I like source too. But I like greater consciousness because of the fact that it means that we're all putting into it, and we all have the ability to affect it. So that's why I personally like greater consciousness, because it means that I have the ability to input it as well and not just be pulling from it. I'm putting into it as much as I'm pulling from it, ideally, or that is the goal. So phenomenology means that life is made up of a myriad of different observations, experiences, and epiphanies. Interesting. I'm going to have to look into that more, because I really like that idea, and I can kind of just on a surface level agree with it. So I would like to delve into that further. Madeline Lengo, I don't know who that is. I'll have to look it up. Can you remember to, Cedric, can you put that in the comments later so I don't forget? Exactly, love. Always give more than you can take. I try to do that as well. Do you think that think about influencing things in a way is the same relation between God and us? And do you think that God is separate from us? When the one becomes two, the number two aspires the high of the one, and then he goes down. Interesting. You know, that's a really great question, actually. Like, how influenced am I by growing up Christian and having those ideologies put on me? I always did really like Christianity for a lot of reasons because it told you to be kind to your neighbor, treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. There's a reason for everything. You know, doing good deeds is good and has good consequences, and doing bad things has bad consequences, and it makes you think about your actions. So there's a lot of things that I really like about Christianity, and a lot of things that I didn't like about centralized church systems. And that can kind of actually tie in with the original subject of this video, which is things that are too big become difficult to manage. Oh, bye, love. It's good to see you for a little bit. And I'm trying to like tie that back to your question. I got a little off subject. I tend to do that if you're new. Actually, I haven't seen your name, so you might be new. I tend to get off subject. Do you think that God is separate from us? You know, I don't actually think that God is separate from us. I just don't like the word God. I like greater consciousness better because in my mind, greater consciousness means God without God being this separate, like, deity. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about the progression of religion alone, if you take out Christianity and you just take a step back and look at the progression of religions in general, religions started out with lots of gods, lots of deities. You look at the Greeks, the Mesopotamians, the Chinese, wherever you go, there's lots of gods. There's lots of rulers who are in control of different things. And as society progressed and as humans progressed, we decreased the number of gods. We dwindled them down, and we came to this conclusion, no, there's not 50 gods. There's not 5,000 gods. There's one God. One God is all of them. And what if the next step is to realize that there is no single deity, but we are all a part of the same thing. We're all a part of the same deity. And so I think Christianity was kind of trying to say that, in that we are God, we are one with God. But why should we call it a God when it's not a deity? There's not some like individualized consciousness about this thing. Well, it's hard to say because now we're getting into like a realm that we actually don't know, because we can't be God. We can't know 100% if God exists. You know, just like, you know, ghosts. And unless you see one, you're not going to believe one fully. And even if you see it, you might still not believe it fully. The idea is that we emulate source, not pull from it necessarily. It is the metaphysical that we aspire to, and what we create is something else, though still related. I do like that. You know, the thing is, I think that the words that we use are really important because of the baggage that every single word has. And so as I try to articulate myself, I find myself using words that are subpar, and it frustrates me to no end because I want to just create new words. But at the same time, I also want there to be less words because I think that language is too complicated sometimes. So I have this contradictory idea in my head that we need better words, but we need less words. But, yeah, guys, I'm getting pretty tired. I am really grateful for every single one of you who's come in and chatted with me tonight. It's been great to see you guys. James, I know you're new. Matthias, I don't think I've ever seen you, so it's nice to meet you. Cedric, it's good to see you as always. Who else came in? Ray came in. Nice to see you, Ray, of course. The boy, you're new, I'm thinking, or you haven't commented, so hello. Nice to see you. What was her name? Zandy, or his name? I'm not sure. Zandy, great to see you. And Charles, I saw that you came in to chat. You might be working, so hi if you're still listening, or if you listen to this later. And thank you guys all so very much for coming. And I hope you have a beautiful, amazing, wonderful night. And go enjoy your weekend. It's Friday night. Get out the house. Unless you live in Europe, in which case it's like 7 hours later or something. So in the middle of the morning. I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.